Hello, this is John Jawan, and I'm reflecting on the one-year Bible reading for today, which is Acts chapter 21, verses 18 through 36. And today is day 183. So I think you add that up, we are right at the midpoint of a whole year of reading the scriptures together. And I'm focusing on Acts chapter 21. And instead of getting involved in all the complicated details of what's going on here, I want to focus on this much bigger macro picture. You have something going on, which is masses of Jews and Gentiles being reconciled to one another in the name of Jesus Christ. And the question of, is Paul responsible then for damaging, destroying the identity of the Jewish community? Now, the intent of this process, biblically, if you look at Ephesians and also in Corinthians, look up this whole idea of reconciliation, the ministry of reconciliation. It's bringing together communities of people that previously had not been reconciled. It's actually that kind of work. It cuts deeper than we can imagine, and it brings up some of the deepest fears in terms of, the New Testament vision of heaven is that people from every tribe, tongue, and nation under God, our Creator, brought together. That's a pretty amazing call. And there's a couple things that are really interesting from this first passage. First of all, it's really clear that Paul wants to make it clear that he hasn't set aside his identity as a Jewish person. He still sees himself as a Jew carrying forward the law and the traditions and everything else. And he's willing to live as a Jew. And we have Christians like that today. They're called, messianic believers. And I give respect to anyone from the Jewish tradition. It is a huge responsibility and a huge gift to human culture that you've been the guardian and that you've carried for us the law of God into culture. The reason why, we could go into a bunch of details, the reason why we have a lot of the freedoms that we have is the idea of lex rex, or that the law can be king. And that God's law gives an equal basis for everyone else to stand as equals, judged by God's law. But there's a whole bunch of different things here. Going back to reconciliation, he tries to make it as clear as possible that he and the community around him still follow what's expected of them. So here he is. He's got these four men who's completing their vows, and they're going through the whole process of a purification ceremony. They're having their heads ritually shaved, and they are trying to disprove the accusation that Paul doesn't observe Jewish law. And the scriptures are clear. Jesus did not come to remove the law itself, but rather to empower us to live out of the right motivation, to live into what the law required. And yet there's this clarity. There's this clarity of, look at verse 25. The intent of the law and all of the forms of the law, that context where the law that was necessary to shape Israel to be in identity Israel versus what it means to be a follower of God, aren't quite equally meshed. It doesn't take away the glory of what it means to be Israel. And actually for those who see their connection to Abraham through Abraham's other child Ishmael, it doesn't take away the promise to all of those who have inherited the blessing of Abraham. And at the end, you have a riot. I've seen all chaos break out when different people from different cultural backgrounds lovingly and meaningfully try to get together. I've seen it in when African Americans and Caucasians they date. Some of them even marry, and then they're like, "Who did you bring home?" There's this cultural barrier. How close can we meaningfully get to someone of another culture and meaningfully intermingle a meaningful relationship of love and reconciliation? Ultimately, it means that the distinction, what ultimately creates barriers of separation between us, I think that there's a fun hip hop album, Public Enemy, called "Fear of a Black Planet," where it talks about if the races intermingle, there may be more dark-skinned folk than light-skinned folk. There's a lot of complicated things here, but in the end, I think that the effort shown in South Africa to bring reconciliation and forgiveness rather than justice and really bringing down the whole of a society is pretty instructive. I'm not saying that what has happened in South Africa is perfect. I'm just saying that we have a lot to learn about learning to getting along cross-culturally, across all sorts of lines. And God's intent, God who made each human being in His image, God's intent is that we learn to love each other. Not as we wish we were, but as we really are. Take care. God bless. Let's learn to keep the faith.